for fourth unit, design of columns. We will quickly recall the concepts which were discussed in the last session. We were discussing about the column types and its applications, reinforcements, and design parameters. The four design parameters are slenderness ratio, cross-sectional dimensions, effective length, and support conditions, which were discussed in the previous class. And we have discussed what are slenderness ratio and the limit for slenderness ratios and all. Next, this is the types of columns based on the reinforcement. Here, the longitudinal bars are tied with individual tie members. In the case of circular column, the longitudinal bars can be tied with a spiral transverse reinforcement, which will be wound from top to bottom at certain spacing. And this is the composite column. Here we will use structural steel and reinforcement along with concrete. Here. Next, classification based on shape and loading. We were designing the axially loaded column from the previous class. Eccentricity, that is eccentricity is the distance between the load and the CG of the column, and it is measured in both directions in case of biaxial eccentric loading, that is EX, as well as EY. In case of axially loaded column with uniaxial bending, only we have EX, EY will be 0. And in case of axial load, no eccentricity, EX and EY will not be there. And we have classified the columns based on its location and orientation of column, how the width and depth should be aligned along with the walls of the given building plan. And based on slenderness ratio, the column is classified into short column or long column. And effective length with respect to both X and Y axis. And we have discussed the effective length of compression member based on 7 types of columns from IS 456 2007. And then buckling, then minimum eccentricity. Now what is minimum eccentricity? The minimum distance between the point of column and center point of column and the point of application of load. For rectangular or circular column, the minimum eccentricity should be the maximum of 2 values. One is 20 mm, that is fixed, and other one is total height divided by 500 plus d by 30, where d is the depth of the column. And this is discussed in class 25.4 in IS 456 and page number 42. And the minimum area of longitudinal reinforcement, the main bar should be provided in column is 0.8% to 6% of gross area of the column. Total cross-section area of the column is called AG. And for rectangular column, minimum number of bars is 4, and for circular column, minimum is 6. And the minimum diameter for main bars is 12 mm. And these all the points are discussed in class 26.5.3, page number 48. Now we will quickly revise the transverse reinforcement. Transverse reinforcements are the tie bars to hold the longitudinal bars in position so that they may not sag in the sideways, and to protect the inner core of the concrete from splitting, because concrete is very weak in tension and it should be protected from getting splitted due to tension. To prevent the outward buckling of concrete, that is, the column should not buckle sideways due to eccentric loading applied on the column. When the load is applied on the column with some eccentricity, some portion will be undergone undergoing compression and some portion will be undergoing tension. So due to this imbalance forces of compression and tension, the column will undergo buckling. And what is pitch? It is a spacing between ties. That is, it is taken minimum of least lateral dimension of column, that is width of the column, and 16 times the diameter of main bar. If your main bar is 12 mm and the value is 16 into 12, and the third one is the fixed value 300 mm. Next, maximum spacing of helicals. Helicals means a single bar is wound from top to bottom like a spring spiral. So the spacing between each and every helical of that spiral is should be minimum of two values. One is 75 mm and other one is 1/6 of the core diameter of column. We will see what is core diameter. Core diameter is nothing but the diameter of column excluding the clear cover provided on the circumference of the circular column. Next, minimum spacing. What is the minimum spacing of helicals? 25 mm, 3 times the diameter of helical bar. If you are using 8 mm dia helical bar, then 8 into 3, 24. Then the minimum spacing should be 24. And the maximum is out of these two values. So you can provide the spacing of helicals between these two values. That is minimum spacing. If you are getting minimum spacing as 25 and the maximum spacing as 50 mm, then you can provide a distance of 40 mm, 35 mm, anything ranging between 25 and 50 mm. And minimum diameter of helical bar is maximum of 1/4 of the main bar. If you are using 12 mm dia bar, it should be divided by 4 and another value is 6 mm. In your code book, it is wrongly printed as 16 mm and this is discussed in page number 49, class 26.5.3.2, point number C2. You strike out this value 16 mm and write 6 mm. Next, today we will be designing the circular column based on axial load. And for circular column also we will be using the same formula, that is axial load on column PU is calculated as 0.4 FCK AC plus 0.67 FY into ASC. ASC is nothing but the area of main bar provided in the column. AC is the area of concrete excluding the steel. FCK is strength of the concrete and FY is the strength of the steel. And we have modified this equation for simplicity as Pu equal to 0.4 FCK AG plus 0.67 FY minus 0.4 FCK ASC, where AG is the gross area, that is total cross-section area of the column, and it is calculated as pi into diameter of column whole square divided by 2 by 4. Pi d square by 4 will be giving you the value of AG. Next, and important note that should be taken from code book class 39.3 is when the minimum eccentricity as per 25.4 does not exceed 0.05 times the least lateral dimension. That is, the minimum eccentricity you have calculated should be less than or equal to 0.05 times D. In case of circular column, there is no D or depth or width. We are having only one lateral dimension, that is diameter. So the minimum eccentricity should be less than or equal to 0.05 times diameter of the column. Next, we have seen this problem last class. Now we will continue with design of circular column. We will see some design parameters should be considered before getting into the problem. See, when the lateral ties are replaced with helical ties, then the load carrying capacity of column increases by 5%. Suppose if a column is able to carry 100 kilonewton In case of loops or in case of lateral ties, individual lateral ties, then if you are replacing those lateral ties with the help of helical ties like a spring, then the load carrying capacity will increases to 105 kilonewton. That is given in class 39.4. 1.05 times the strength of similar member with lateral ties. Right? That is why we will calculate axial load of helical column equal to 1.05. That is 105 percentages. 105 divided by 100. 1.05 PU of column with lateral ties. And pitch of helix is determined from formula under class 39.4.1. See on the right hand side, we are having the formula ratio. This is nothing but the ratio of the volume of helical reinforcement to the volume of core. That should not be less than 0.36 times Ag, that is gross area, divided by area of concrete, minus 1 into FCK by Fy, which is nothing but the uniform spacing, center to center spacing should be provided between the helical bars. Now we will see what is core diameter. Core diameter of column is denoted as D dash, which is equal to capital D minus 2 into clear cover C. For columns, we will normally provide clear cover of 50 mm. So if the diameter of the column is 400 mm, then we are adopting clear cover of 50 mm, then 400 minus 2 into 50, we will be getting 300. So that 300 is called core diameter of the column. And this is the cross section of a circular column. Capital D is the actual diameter of the column, and it is provided with how many? 8 numbers of main bars. And it is provided with helical bar. Now, this is the distance between the main bar and outer face of the column is called clear cover C. Next, diameter of core is nothing but D dash, which is equal to D minus 2C. That is from one end of the main bar to other end of the main bar is called core diameter. Then another diameter we need to consider is effective diameter, which is nothing but the center to center distance between the helical bar. That is from one center of the helical bar to the other opposite center of the helical bar. See, from this center to the other end center is called effective diameter of helical bar, which is nothing but D dash. That is D dash from one end of the main bar to other end plus half of the diameter of helical bar plus half of the helical diameter of the helical bar. That is 1 dia of helical bar. So D dash plus diameter of one helical bar will be giving you the value of effective diameter. This is one of the most important parameter to be considered while calculating the pitch. Now, sometimes area of steel is represented as AS and sometimes it may be represented as ASC. AS means general area of steel. ASC means area of steel that is withstanding the compression. Next, AC. What is AC? Area of concrete in core portion. Core portion means we need to consider core diameter. It is pi d dash square by 4, and you are going to detect the area of steel. Then volume of core portion per unit height of the column. We will always consider 1 meter as the unit height of the column, and volume is nothing but area of concrete in core portion into 1 meter, that is 1000 mm. Next, volume of helical bars. Helical bars are also called as helix per unit height. So within this 1 meter height, we need to calculate the total volume of bar required to wound the main bars from within that 1 meter height. And we will calculate this volume VUS, that is volume of helical bars, is calculated as circumference of the bar, helical bar, which is nothing but pi into d into 1000 height divided by pitch. Pitch is nothing but spacing between the helical bars. Now circumference is calculated as pi into effective diameter of core into 1000 divided by pitch p, where effective diameter is nothing but d dash plus diameter of helical bar. Here d dash is substituted. What is d dash? D minus 2c. So d minus 2 into clear cover plus diameter of helical bar. Now we will calculate the pitch according to the codal provision, which is specified in class 39.4.1, that is the ratio of helical bar, the ratio of volume of helical bar divided by the volume of concrete. This ratio should be less than this value, 0.36 times Ag minus Ac minus 1, Ag divided by Ac minus 1 into FCK divided by Fy. So what is VUS? We have calculated last slide. Just substitute to this here, pi into effective diameter of helix into 1000 divided by volume of concrete. Volume of concrete is AC into 1000. And the pitch coming from this volume of helical bar. And I am rewriting the right hand side portion as it is. When you substitute all the values except the value of pitch, you will get the lowest, the highest value of pitch, the lowest value of pitch which should be provided in your column. Next, now take down the question. Design the reinforcements in a circular column of diameter 300 mm to support a service axial load of 1000 kN. The column has an unsupported length. Unsupported length means the clear height of the column, 3 meters. It is to be reinforced with helical ties, not individual lateral ties. They have asked you to provide helical ties. Adopt M20 grade and FE415 HYSD bars. In previous problem, we have provided lateral reinforcement in the form of ties, individual ties. Now here we are going to provide in the form of helical ties, like a spring. So step number 1, height of column 3 meter, 3000 mm, diameter of column 300 mm, capital D, service load capital P is 1000 kilonewton. When it is given service load, it is to be noted that factor of safety is not included. So you have to apply factor of safety, that is 1.5 to the service load to get the ultimate load. So you have to design the column for 1500 kilonewton. And FCK is 20 and Fy 415. Next is step number 2, slenderness ratio. Why we need to calculate slenderness ratio means we need to classify this column whether it is coming into short column or slender column. So the condition is the L by D should be less than 12 for short column. Now our L is 3000, D is diameter 300. So we are getting 10, which is less than 12. Then it is to be designed as a short column. Next step number 3 is minimum eccentricity. So for calculating minimum eccentricity, we have to go through 2 classes. One is 39.3 and other one is 25.4. As per class 39.3, the minimum eccentricity should be less than or equal to 0.05 times the least lateral dimension. Now what is the least lateral dimension? Diameter. So 0.05 into D, 300, we are getting 15 mm. So the minimum eccentricity should be less than or equal to 15 mm only. Now, as per class 25.4, we are having two specifications for calculating minimum eccentricity. That is, one is 20 mm and the other one is L by 500 plus D by 30. Maximum, we need to calculate, we need to consider the maximum of these two values. So 20 is fixed one and L is 3000 divided by 500 plus diameter 300 divided by 30, we are getting 16. Now, which is maximum out of these two? 20. So minimum eccentricity is 20, but it is not satisfying the condition E minimum less than or equal to 15. So what we have to do is, we have to revise the dimension of the column so that our minimum eccentricity is coming 15 mm. So in order to maintain this minimum eccentricity 15, we need to increase the diameter of column according to this condition 0.05 D, which is equal to 15. So 0.05. So maximum is 20. E minimum 20 we are getting from this condition. So this value 0.05 D is equated to this 20. And what is D? 20 divided by 0.05. We are getting 400 mm. So we need to revise the diameter of column from 300 to 400 mm. Though the diameter of column is given in question as 300, we have to revise this. Why? Because it is not following the criteria of minimum eccentricity. Clear? Now the diameter of column will be revised to 400 mm. Now we will recalculate the minimum eccentricity as per this formula. Class 25.4. There is maximum of 20 and L is 3000 divided by 500 plus diameter is revised diameter 400 divided by 30 should be less than or equal to 0.05 into D is 400. So we are comparing these two formulas. Here we are getting 20 and instead of 16 we are getting 19.33 due to increase in diameter of column. And maximum of these two is 20 and right hand side also we are having 20. So the condition is satisfied now. So we can proceed the design of column with the revised diameter 400 mm. Now step number 4 is main reinforcement, and we have discussed that the axial load of helical column PU will increase by 5% of the axial load of column with the individual lateral ties. So use the same formula and multiply with 1.05. The right. Now PU of helical column is given as 1500 kilonewton, which is equal to 1.05 into 0.4 FCK into gross area AG plus 0.67 Fy minus 0.4 FCK of ASC. Now substitute everything. FCK you know 20, AG is nothing but the total cross section area of column pi into 400 square by 4, the revised diameter, plus 0.67 into Fy. Fy is steel strength 415 minus 0.4 FCK is concrete strength 20 Newton per mm square. ASC we don't know. We have to calculate the value of ASC. That is area of steel in compression. Now after equating with respect to the load given in question 1500 into 1000 Newton. Now we are getting ASC value as 1567 mm square. Now last class we discussed that minimum reinforcement to be provided in column should be 0.8% of AG. And this is as per class 26.5.3 given in page number 48. Now what is 0.8%? 0.8 divided by 100, which is nothing but 0.08 into gross area of column pi into 400 square by 4. And you are getting 1105 mm square. So our area of steel is coming more than this 1005 mm square. Suppose sometime we may get value greater than this 1500. Okay, In that case, you can adopt the maximum of these two as your area of steel. Suppose you are getting minimum AAC value as 2000, but it is more than 1567. So you have to provide AAC as 2000 only. So you have to compare these two values and adopt the highest one. Now, since the value is more, around 1500, we can go for a normal size bar, 16 mm dia bar for main bars. The number of bars is calculated as formula area of steel in compression divided by area of one bar. So the AAC is 1567 divided by area of one bar is pi d square by 4. D is the assumed diameter of bar, 16 square, and we are getting 7.8. No, the value is 8. And as per codal provision, the minimum bar should be in circular column is 6. So the condition is satisfied. So provide 8 mm dia, provide 8 number of 16 mm dia main bars. 8 means we are maintaining the angular spacing of 45 degree between each bar. In case of circular column, we will tell that angular spacing. Angular spacing is 45 degree. In case of 8, we have to provide the bars only in even numbers, 6, 8, and then 12, 10, like that. If you are providing odd numbers, we cannot maintain that angular spacing properly. Next, step number 5 is transverse reinforcement, which is nothing but helical bars. As per point number C2 of IS 456, we are having minimum diameter of helical bar as maximum of 1/4 of the main bar or 6 mm. So maximum is 12 divided by, not 12, it is 16. 16 we have provided. So it is 16 by 4. 16 by 4 is, you will be getting around 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4, and value, the second value is 6 mm. It is fixed. So maximum out of 4 and 6 is 6 mm. Since there is no 6 mm diameter in the market available, we are going for next available size, that is 8 mm. So let us provide 8 mm dia helical bars. Assume clear cover as 50 mm. Now let us calculate the core diameter of column D dash and D minus 2 into clear cover of the column, which is nothing but 400 minus 2 into 50, 300. It is the core diameter. Next, area of steel provided. How many bars we have provided? 8. So 8 into 16 mm dia bar, that is 8 into pi into 16 square divided by 4. That is, we are getting 1608 mm square. Now we will calculate the area of concrete within the core portion. That is, area of core AC equal to pi into core diameter square divided by 4, and then we have to deduct the area of steel AS. This pi into 300 square by 4 minus this AS. What we have calculated here? This one, 1608. So we are getting 69,070 mm square. Now next we will calculate the volume of core per unit height. Just to multiply this area with 1 meter height, the 1000 mm cube. Next, volume of helical bars or helix per unit height. Within that 1 meter height, we need to calculate the total volume of that 8 mm dia bar wound within that 1 meter height. So how to calculate the length of the bar? Length of the helical bar is calculated in the form of circumference, and then volume is calculated by circumference into 1000 divided by pitch. So pi into d. Pi d is the circumference. Circumference is nothing but multiplying pi with effective diameter of core into 1000 divided by p. Effective diameter is d minus 2 into clear cover plus diameter of helical bar, as we have saw in that diagram, effective diagram, that is from one center of helical to other center of the helical bar. So D is 400 minus 2 into 50 plus 8. 8 is the diameter of helical bar. We are getting 308 mm. Next, we will calculate VUS by substituting all the values pi into 308 into 1000 divided by P. P is which we have to calculate. Now substitute the value of VUS here, pi into 308 into 1000 divided by P, and the volume of core concrete is 69078 into 1000, and less than 0.36. AG is gross area of column, that is pi into 400 square by 4 divided by area of concrete, that is area of core in concrete is 69078 minus 1 into 20. 20 is FCK, F divided by Fy 415, and simplify this, and you will be getting which value, and we are getting very less value here since the load is very less on the column. That is, the value of P should be greater than 0.929 mm as per the load calculations. Next, we will calculate maximum spacing of helicals and the minimum spacing of helical bars. Maximum spacing is taken from that point number D, minimum of two values, 75 mm and 1/6 of the core diameter of column. Core diameter of column is 300. So 300 divided by 6 and 75. Compare these two values, 75 and 50. Minimum out of these two is 50. That is, the spacing between the helical bars should not exceed 50 mm. And next, minimum spacing of helicals, that is calculated from the same point number D in the code book. That is, one value is fixed at 25 mm and the other value is 3 times the diameter of helical bar. 3 into 8 is 24, 25. Minimum is 24. That is, the spacing between the helical bar should not be less than 24 mm. But we have calculated as 0.929, which is very, very less than 24 mm, and we should not provide this value 0.929 mm. So we are providing a optimum value between 24 and 50, like 40 mm, or you can provide 35 mm. It is your wish. So let us provide 8 mm dia helicals at 40 mm center to center. Now I will show you the reinforcement detailing for this column. This vertical bar is the main bar, nothing but 8 number 6 mm dia main bars, and the zigzag bars are called helicals, which is wound around the main bars at a spacing of 40 mm, at a pitch of 40 mm. And this is the cross section: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 main bars, and the helical bar is 8 mm provided 40 mm center to center, and diameter of column is 400 mm. This is the cross section, and this is the longitudinal section, and this diagram should be drawn in the Structure Studio sheet. And with this, we are completing the design of circular, short axially loaded circular column. Now we will discuss some functions. Okay, let us carry on with the functions of these two bars. That is main bar, longitudinal reinforcement. Why we need to provide these main bars? What are the functions of the longitudinal bars? We will discuss. This question will be asked in part A of your university exam. First one is to share the vertical compressive load. You know that uh, concrete is very strong in carrying the compression and weak in carrying the tension, whereas steel is very strong in carrying the tension and very weak in compression. Though the steel provided for long-term reinforcement is weak in carrying the compression load, it is also sharing some portion of vertical load applied on the column, thereby reducing the overall size of the column. Suppose if you are going to design a column without reinforcement for around 400 mm diameter, then in case if you are providing the longitudinal reinforcement, the diameter may come down to 300 mm from 400. So we are reducing the space occupied by that column by providing steel longitudinal reinforcement. That is discussed in first point. Second point is to resist tensile stresses caused in the column due to eccentric load and then moment and then transverse load. Due to imbalance load coming from the both side beams, then the moment will develop at the top end of the column. And when the load is not purely axial, that is, it is having some eccentricity, Ex or Ey, in that case, tensile stress will develop in the column. And then transverse load, like wind, earthquake, water, these are all the transverse load may act on the column. And due to these transverse loads, tensile stresses may develop in the column, and to resist that tensile stress, we are providing the longitudinal reinforcement. See, column is subjected to brittle failure. Brittle failure means without any warning, it will fail suddenly. So to improve the ductility of the column, we need to provide the steel. So when the steel is provided, it will induce its ductility property to the column and it will prevent the column from sudden failure. And to reduce the effects of creep and shrinkage due to sustained loading. Creep is nothing but when the load is applied for several years, then due to long-term application of load, the deformation occurred in the column is called creep. To withstand that creep, we are providing the longitudinal reinforcement. And shrinkage is nothing but since the concrete is wet, the volume will be more due to presence of water. Upon drying, upon evaporation of water, upon hydration of concrete present in the column, then the concrete will shrink from its original volume. Why? Because all the water content is taken out, utilized for hardening process as well as evaporation. In that case, the volume of column will reduce by certain amount. That reduction in volume is called shrinkage. So due to the shrinkage, the concrete will induce some cracks. Those cracks will be controlled by this longitudinal reinforcement. Next, functions of transverse reinforcement, nothing but helical bars or individual ties, lateral ties. Why we need to provide lateral ties or helical bars? To prevent longitudinal buckling of longitudinal reinforcement. When the reinforcement is provided for very huge, very large height, it may tend to buckle sideways. In that case, we are maintaining the vertical position of longitudinal bars. So to prevent longitudinal buckling, we are providing that lateral ties. And to resist the diagonal tension caused due to transverse shear due to moment or transverse load. when the column is subjected to imbalance reactions coming from the beams, it will undergo some transverse load and moment. To have proper connection with the beam and column, we need to resist that diagonal tension. So in that case, we need to provide the transverse reinforcement. And to hold the longitudinal reinforcement in position at the time of concreting, the longitudinal reinforcement will be having a height of 3 meter. So the vertical bar cannot withstand that 3 meter height. So we need to, when you pour some concrete into the formwork of the column, that reinforcement may displace from its position. So to maintain the position of long-term reinforcement, these lateral ties will hold the bars in correct position, so that the bars will not move from one place to other place, to confine the concrete, thereby preventing its longitudinal splitting. So the concrete within the main reinforcement is compact. And to impart even more ductility apart from the main bar, these transverse bars are also imparting the ductility to the column. And also, it will, since transverse reinforcements are also made up of steel, it will also help in preventing the sudden brittle failure of column. And in this slide, we will see how the load is getting transferred into the column. And this is the roof, and it is having a second floor, first floor, and ground floor. The column in ground floor will be carrying more load. Why? Because it has to carry second floor column as well as first floor column. And the column in second floor has to carry lesser load. Why? Because it has to resist only load from roof. So the roof load is transferred to the second floor column, and to the first floor column, the load from second floor as well as the load from second floor column is getting transferred. And for the ground floor, the entire load from first floor, second floor, roof, and the self weight of the first floor and second floor columns are transferred. And that is why always you will consider the ground floor column in designing. And we will see tributary load on each column. And in any given plan, the column can be classified based on its location. It is corner column, C1. Next, C2 is exterior column, that is provided along the edges. C3 is also the other exterior columns provided along the longitudinal span. C4 is the interior column. Now, if you consider a C4 column, that is the interior column, the load, 1/4 of the load coming from the first slab, and 1/4 of the load coming from second slab, and again 1/4 of the load coming from third slab, and 1/4 of the load coming from this fourth slab. So totally, it has to carry load from 4 different directions. That is, on 4 sides, 4 beams are provided. So each beam will be contributing the load. Each beam will be transferring the load from that particular slab to this column. And if you consider the exterior column, this one, it has to support only 2 slabs on the left hand side. So 1/4 of load from the first slab and 1/4 of the load from the second slab will be contributing to this exterior column. The same thing will be in the case of C3 also. And the fourth type is interior column, corner column, C1. C1, if you find any corner column, it has to carry only little amount of load, that is coming from only one slab. 1/4 of the load coming from one particular slab. So interior columns are subjected to maximum load, exterior columns are supported to moderate load, and the corner columns are subjected to least load in any building. And another important question may be asked in part A is assumptions for designing the compression member under limit state design. So this is discussed in, this is mentioned in IS 446 under class 39.4.1, page number 70. You can go through that. So you can open up your code book, page number 70. So the assumptions are given in class 39.4, 39.1 in this. In addition to the assumptions given in class 38.1, point number A to E for flexure. Flexure means whatever assumptions you have done for designing the beams. That is point number A, B, C, D, E is also applicable to columns. And apart from those 5 points, 5 assumptions, we are having 2 more assumptions, A, B, that is the maximum compressive strain in concrete in axial compression is taken as 0.002. And the maximum compressive strain at the highly compressed extreme fiber in concrete subject to axial compression as well as bending. And when there is no tension on the section shall be 0.0035 minus 0.7 times the strain at the least compressed extreme fiber. Now we will see those, we will revise those 5 points mentioned in class 38.1. This first point is plane sections normal to the axis remain plane after bending. So when the column is subject to some buckling, the plane section will always remain plane. It will not undergo any curvature. Second point is the maximum strain in concrete at the outermost compressive fiber is taken as 0.0035 in bending. When the column is subjected to bending moment apart from axial load, in that case we will consider the strain as 0.0035. Next, point number C, the relationship between the compressive stress distribution in concrete and the strain in concrete may be assumed to be rectangle, trapezoid, parabola, or any other shape which results in prediction of strength in substantial agreement with the results of the test. An acceptable stress strain curve is shown in figure 21. So this same stress strain curve is also applicable for both beams and columns. That is from zero strain to strain of 0.002, the variation is in the form of parabolic. So it is slowly increasing in the order of parabolic curve. And after a value of strain 0.02, then the strain will increase with the uniform stress. Stress will not increase, stress will be constant. And when that stress is sustained for more time, then the strain may increase like this. This is for actual FCK of concrete. And when the concrete is provided with some factor safety, the load applied will be reduced when compared to that factored load. In that case, stress will also be less, and the maximum stress applied is 0.67 times FCK value. And when you apply some partial safety factor gamma m, again the maximum stress will further reduce, 0.67 FCK divided by gamma m. Clear? And the maximum compressive strain is allowed is 0.0035 only. That is what given in these assumptions. And gamma m is taken as 1.5. Next, the tensile strength of the concrete is always ignored. Why? Because concrete will never resist any tension at all. That is why though it is having very little tensile strength compared to compressive strength, we are ignoring the tensile strength of the concrete. We will always consider steel in terms of tensile strength. Next, point number E. The stresses in the reinforcement are derived from representative stress strain curve for the type of steel used. Typical curves are given in figure 23. For design purposes, partial safety factor gamma m equal to 1.15 shall be applied. Now, if you see the figure number 23, this is the actual strength of the steel. First curve belongs to actual strength of the steel Fy, and the second curve belongs to strength of the steel applied with partial safety factor gamma m 1.15. Now ES is Young's modulus of steel 2 lakh Newton per mm square. And the values are taken according to each grade of the concrete. 0.8 Fy, 0.85 Fy, 0.9 Fy, 0.95 Fy, 0.97 Fy, and finally 1 times Fy. And the corresponding strains are given. And this is for cold worked deformed bar. We will always use definite yield point. So we will always refer this figure 23b for high strength bars. Yes, with this we will end up this session, and followed by this class, the PPT and the assignment questions will be posted in Google Classroom, and you can carry out the assignment questions until the next session is scheduled. Thank you.